Hi, dear students. Today we are going to discuss about pollination in plants. Pollination is one of the important mechanisms in plant life to produce fertile seeds. First of all, we have to know what is meant by pollination. Pollination is an act of transferring pollen grains from male anther to the female stigma. Pollination may occur within the flower or between two different flowers. Based on this, we can classify pollination into two major types. One is a self-pollination and another one is a cross-pollination. Self-pollination. Here, the pollen transfer occurs within the same flower or between the flowers of same individual. Such type of pollination is called self-pollination. Self-pollination may further classified into cleistogamy, autogamy and geitonogamy. Cleistogamy, where the pollen grains transfer from anther to the stigma inside a closed flower. The second one is autogamy. Here, the pollen grains were transferred from anther to the stigma of a same flower in a same individual. The third one is geitonogamy. In this type, the pollen grains transfer from anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower in the same individual. The second major type of pollination is the cross-pollination. In this, the plant transfers their pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower of different individuals. Such type of pollination are called genogamy. Do you know how does this plant transfer their pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of flower? For this, the plant utilizes several strategies for the transfer of pollen grains. It utilizes both the biotic and abiotic factors around its environment. Anemophily is the mode of pollination by air. Here, the plant produces a larger amount of minute pollen grains which are easily carried by the wind to the receptive stigma. Such type of pollination are called anemophily. In case of aquatic plants, they release their pollen grains or their entire female flower into the water, which will be easily carried by the water current to the female flowers. Such type of pollination by water is called hydrophily. Apart from abiotic factors, a large number of biotic factors are also involved in the pollination mechanism. In this, insects, flies, butterflies, birds and animals are involved in the pollination mechanism of plants. Based on the type of pollinators involved in the pollination mechanism, we can classify the pollination into following types. The first one, entomophily. So, entomophily is the mode of pollination which is aided by insects. Usually, the insect visits the flower for pollen grains and nectar. In due course of time, they transfer the pollen grains from anther to the stigma, as well as it transfers the pollen grains in n number of flowers. Such type of pollination by insects is called entomophily. The second type is ornithophily, where the birds involved in the pollination mechanism. In this, the plant produces long tubular corolla so that the birds can insert their beak deep into the corolla tube and uptake the nectar. Such type of pollination which is aided by birds are called ornithophily. The third type is chiropterophily, the pollination by bats. The plant, they produce large flower in night time in order to attract these bats. Usually, the bats visit this flower for nectar and pollen grains which are essential for their metabolism. In due course of time, they also transfer these pollen grains between the flowers. Such type of pollination by bats are called chiropterophily. The last one is the zoophily, in which some of the animals like squirrels, primates and some small mammals which are involved in the pollination of several plants. They also visit these plants for nectar, pollen grains, and also they feed on the floral parts. While doing so, they also involved in the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. Such type of pollination by animals are called zoophily. Thank you.